Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today is Friday, September 29th, 2023. Welcome to another episode of Real Estate, Real Life, Real Talk, and Real Live by your host, me, Damon, the agent. And as you all always know, I like to start my show off with the latest real estate topic or trend, and then we normally go into other things. So today, I'm going to talk about the importance of contingencies. And when I say contingency, I don't mean contingent. Some people get those two words confused in real estate because when a property is contingent, it means it's depending on certain circumstances. For example, if someone is selling their house, but in order to sell their house, they have to find another house. So sometimes their house will be contingent on the sellers finding the home of their choice. That's contingent. Contingencies, which is totally different, it is a clause in a contract specifically on an action of requirement that must be met because the contract is a legal binding agreement between both the buyer and the seller. And I want to talk about the importance of the contingencies because I was holding a conversation with someone earlier this week, and they were talking to me about the current stage in the real estate market. And they said that someone was telling them that it's crazy. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And they were saying, well, they're going through situations where they have to waive their contingencies and they have to do all this and that. And I explained to them that even when the pandemic hit in 2020 and then the demand for houses went up the roof, I never had any of my clients to waive their contingency. Because here's the thing, when you waive your contingency, you are giving up a lot of rights. And at the same time, you're giving sellers all the rights. And I also explained to them that what's meant for you is meant for you. And you have to understand that waiving your contingencies, you are inheriting a problem in some cases. And what do I mean by that? Meaning that I knew a situation where someone waived their contingencies. And when they waived their contingencies, they found out after they moved into the house that the house had a lot of electrical functions that were just terrible. When they plugged in the microwave, it blew. When they plugged in the TV, it blew because a lot of faulty wiring. But if they would have did a home inspection, they would have found that out. So here's the thing about contingencies. Let me just explain the importance of the contingencies, just like I just said, but the various contingencies. You have a home inspection contingency, you have an appraisal contingency. And I'm going to explain why these contingencies are vital to your contract when you're making an offer. First of all, just like I mentioned about the person who purchased that home and didn't get any, inspection because they waived all their contingencies, they the importance of the home inspection is to protect the buyer, not the seller. The contingencies in the contract is always to protect the buyer. Everyone needs protection in real estate transactions because you don't know when you buy a property what you are inheriting. And even with new construction, because there's a misconception that even with new construction, because the houses are being built, that you shouldn't even get a home inspection. That's false. Every time I have a client who wants a new build and we go into a new construction, I always have them to put in the contract about a home inspection. See, what you have to understand, even in new construction, those sales reps in there, they represent the builder. They don't represent the buyer. So I always have them to get a home inspection. I've had on two occasions when my clients got home inspections that they found out there was a lot of things off pertaining to the fuse box, pertaining to the wiring, pertaining to the plumbing. So it's very important to do these things because what you're paying for is a peace of mind with a home inspection. And then also take into consideration that when you buying a property, let's say that's not a new build, or even with the new build, you don't know what you are inheriting. You want to know if any problems persist with the property. And another reason why you want to have a contingency, a home inspection contingency in the contract is because if and when you do the home inspection, if there are a lot of issues that come up because of the home inspection, especially if they are major, then there's another term for negotiation between the buyer and the seller, because in many cases, the buyers will want the sellers to fix those issues. And in some cases, you will have some sellers who don't want to fix them. Sometimes they will give the buyer a credit towards fixing them themselves. but those things need to be negotiated because sometimes whatever happens during the home inspection can either make or break the contract. And having that contingency in place gives you an out as a buyer. That's why a lot of times when contracts are written, especially for my clients, I write a specific day in there as far as time, how long it's going to take, gives them time enough to get their home inspection. A lot of times, once their offer gets accepted, I tell them to get their home inspection done immediately within the next 24 to 48 hours, if possible, to make sure that we're within that timeline of the contingency. It protects the buyer. And because it protects the buyer, if any issues come up during the home inspection, then they can negotiate or they can walk away because they have that contingency in place. If they do not have that home inspection contingency in place, what you're basically telling the seller is, I accept your house as is, regardless of what's going on. Now, here's the thing. There are some properties that are sold as is that a buyer can still buy, and you can accept the property as is, but you can also still get a home inspection to know what you are inheriting. Because if there are a lot of issues that come up because of the home inspection, even though it's being sold as is, you can still walk away. There are addendums and all types of things to put into the contract to make sure that you are protected as a buyer. Your agent should always know that. And the appraisal contingency. The appraisal contingency, again, is to protect the buyer. And let me explain that because some people don't seem to understand. Now, here's the thing. If you make an offer on a property, I don't care what the amount can be. I'm just going to use this number for an example. Let's say you make an offer for $500,000 and the appraisal comes back saying that the house is worth $450,000. That's a $50,000 difference right there. So if you have an appraisal contingency in place, most of the time you can send over an addendum to the seller and say, we want to purchase the house at the appraised value, which will be $450,000. Now, here's the thing. If you don't have an appraisal contingency in place, here's the thing. The appraisal come back at $450,000 and you say, oh, I want to purchase this home at $450,000 because the appraisal come in at that amount and there's no contingency. The seller can say, well, the contract says $500,000. I agree to $500,000 and I want $500,000. Guess what? I seen that happen with an agent also, in which the seller would not budge on the appraisal because the seller told them the appraisal's for you, not me. The contract says this dollar amount and that's what I want. So the reason you have to, as a buyer, put these contingencies in place is to protect you. They protect the buyer. Contingencies are always for the buyer. It gives the buyer an out. It also protects the buyer if something comes up that was unforeseen by anyone, like the appraisal coming in lower, like the home inspections having a lot of issues. It is to protect the buyer. Never, ever, ever waive your contingencies in a contract. I don't care what type of market we're in. I don't care where you're located at. I don't care if your agent says that. Never waive a contingency. Always get a home inspection. Always put it in there because whatever house is for you is going to be for you regardless. Do not inherit someone else's problem because you're pressed to get that particular home, because there are thousands of homes out here. Houses go off the market every day. Houses come on the market every day. As you can see everywhere, they're building up. So something will eventually come up, so I'm just sharing with you all when it pertains to contingency. Please understand and know the importance of the contingencies in your contract, because sometimes people believe that, oh, I want to get this house. I want to get this house. I want to get this house. And I understand you want to get that house, but understand also that a house is a big investment. So when you're buying that house, and if it has a lot of issues and you did not get have a contingency in your contract, you could potentially be inheriting the problems because you did not have a contingency in your contract. Always have contingencies. Always have a home inspection contingency. Always have an appraisal contingency. If the property is being sold as is, please speak to your realtor and let them know, or ask them, how can we write this where I'm still protected? And there are ways to do so. If you're in DC, Maryland, Virginia, you can always call me. I'll be glad to help you. So I just want you all to know that. Now, I'm about to do my segment of Q&A, which is questions and answers. If you have any questions, please feel free to post them right now so I can answer them. I have a few questions right here that I've been asked, so I'm going to answer them in just a second. I'll be right back. All right, now we're back with the Q&A session. And the Q&A session is the questions and answers where people will post or ask questions pertaining to any and everything real estate related. So if you have any questions, please post them right now, and I will begin the questions. Okay, this question was asked, is there any room for negotiation for purchasing bank-owned properties? Is there any room for negotiating for purchasing bank-owned properties? Now, bank-owned properties are foreclosed properties. Now, the question is there any room to negotiate the price? Here's the thing. Most of the time, foreclosed properties and bank-owned properties are priced below market value. For example, whatever that price is, if it's a foreclosure, 9 times out of 10, it's priced below the houses in the area that are on the market that are in good and very good condition. So is there room for negotiation? It really depends. If you're using a loan, there's really not much room for negotiation when you're dealing with foreclosed property because the banks already know what the house is worth. So they listed the property according to the amount of repairs that needs to be done to get it up to par with the similar homes in the area. So let's say hypothetically, if they listed something for like 350,000 and they know that the houses are selling for like 425, 450 in the area, but they know that it's going to take about 75 to $100,000 worth of repairs to be done. That's why it's priced so low. So if you're coming with a loan product such as a FHA 203K or conventional loan, many times they're not going to budge on those prices. If you're coming with cash, they will budge slightly. Excuse me for a second. Excuse me. If you're coming with cash and you have making a cash offer, and I'm talking about cash, not the hard money lending cash, 9 times out of 10, depending on how much you go down, they will budge a little. But understand with foreclosed properties, just because they're already cheap don't mean that you can just come in much more cheaper because they're priced accordingly. So when it pertains to foreclosed property, is there room for negotiation? Yes, there is, but it's really going to depend on how much the negotiation is, and it's also going to depend on what type of offer you're making. Are you making a cash offer? Are you making an offer with a loan product? And the reason why I say that is because there are many people who watch HGTV and they think that, because what they see, not understanding there's some truth to it, but it's also a TV show. So these are scripted. And what people tend to do is they'll go in there and then they think they come out here, they get approved for a home loan, and then they want a lowball offer. But you cannot make a lowball offer with a loan product. You can make a lowball offer with cash because cash, there's no contingencies. And most of the time, the seller, aka bank, knows there's no contingencies with cash offers. So they're much more willing to, be flexible with the price. With a loan product that's conventional or FHA, there are contingencies. The appraisal contingencies, home inspection contingency. So it's a lot of problem. Plus, with a cash product, you can go to settlement quicker. Once title has been clear, you can go to settlement. With a loan product, you have to wait till the loan is fully approved, get a clear to close, and then you can go. And that takes that takes roughly 21 to 30 days. In some cases, it takes longer. So you don't have that much negotiation power using a loan product that you do with using cash. And at the same time, you have to understand that what you see on TV doesn't always necessarily apply. So a lot of times it's always best to listen to your realtor or broker to give you the proper advice on what to do, because every situation is different. So everything doesn't apply the same. Just like when your uncle or cousin bought a home many years ago, it was a totally different time there. The market was different. The interest rate was different. Things change. You got to understand we're in 2023. Things are not the same as it was in 2013. Things are not the same as it was in 2003. Things are not the same as it was in 1993. Things change. The market changes all the time. So what you have to understand is that most real estate professionals, they have to take continuing educations every 2 years to be updated on what's the latest guidelines. A lot of times when people get advice that are years old, or they think they know because of something they used to do like many, many years ago, they are outdated. They like the latest iPhone. You have the latest iPhone and they have the first iPhone, and then they're trying to tell you that their camera is just as good as yours, but you have the latest one. And that's the same information. It is totally outdated. So please keep that into consideration. So at the same time, what's the next question? If the neighborhood is at a certain range currently, does that necessarily mean you have that much equity? It depends. Now I'm gonna repeat this question. It said if the neighborhood is at a certain range currently, does that necessarily mean you have that much equity? So basically what they're saying is if houses are selling for, let's say, a higher amount than what their house is, do they have that much equity? It depends on your home and the condition of your home. All of that plays a factor. And I say that to say I had an appointment this week with a guy. And when I was speaking with him, I said, what's the condition of your home? Because when I pulled up the comps, the CMA, that's the comparative market analysis online, it said his price range was a certain price range. And I asked him, I said, what's the condition of your home? He said, oh, it's relatively average. This is what he said. He said relatively average. I said, well, if it's average, it's between this price range. I said, but I would need to see it to get a clearer picture. I went to his home. His home is a mess. He has on every floor, the ceiling, you can tell there's water damage. In the back of the home, for some reason, the back door is open, broken off, water damage is coming in, mold is building up on the back of his home and everything. So I told him, I said, that price I quoted you, it's much less now because you said your house was average. This house needs clearly work. So, and I told him through a buyer's eyes, when a buyer comes into this property, they're going to view it from the way that I'm telling you. So long story short, based off the area he was in, if his house was in very good condition, because there are homes that have sold like in the mid 700s in his area, okay? But because his house needs so much work and everything, his house might sell for around 500,000 because of so much work it needs to be done. And the condition of the home plays a huge factor when it pertains to how much equity is in a home. If you have houses in your area selling for a certain price range, let's say you owe nothing on your home and the houses are selling your house in your area for 600,000. Okay, so you say, oh, the house cross street sold for 600,000. Our house, but the house across the street might be in very, very good condition. Your house may be in poor condition. You are not equal. You know, for some reason, everyone thinks their house is better than the neighbor's house without factoring in the condition of the home. They just think zip code. See, when you go on Zillow or Redfin and y'all get the Zestimates and they're giving you an estimate on the value of your home, what you have to take into consideration is they're basing it on a zip code. They're basing it on a zip code and what has sold in that zip code. You can have a house right across the street that was completely renovated that sold for 799,000, and then your house can be in terrible shape. But the thing about it is your house is not going to sell for 799,000. Then because of all the average, you go on Zillow and they say, "Oh, how's in my area selling for 750? Yeah, we can get 750 for this." But then your house needs $200,000 worth of work done. So you thinking you can get 750. So then when a real estate professional comes and tell you the true value of your home based off the condition, and I'm not talking about an investor telling you, because an investor is clearly going to tell you the lowest thing possible. I'm talking about the true value of your home. You sometimes question it because you don't want to take the professional advice because you've been looking at Zillow and watching HGTV. So, hey, it is what it is. The next question. How do you negotiate short sales? How do you negotiate short sales? Well, it depends on which end you on. When you say how do you negotiate short sales, here's the thing: as real estate professionals, I've done a lot of short sale listings. Okay, I know how to do it from the very beginning. What's going to be done during the whole transaction? I know it ins and out. In the state of Maryland now, they want lawyers or title companies to handle that. In DC, a real estate professional can still do it, because I just recently did one early this year. So how do you negotiate it? It just really depends on so many things. Now, if you're coming from a buyer's perspective and you're trying to make an offer on it, understand short sales 9 times out of 10 are priced below market value, but you can get them at a great deal. Those a lot of times can somewhat be negotiated with the bank depending on the offer again. And also the condition of the home plays a huge factor. So how do you negotiate? You hire a professional to do it for you, because you can't do it. How do you assume a mortgage? Assuming a mortgage is very risky. So I 9 times out of 10 won't really recommend or suggest that, because you have a lot of people who may be behind on their payments, who may also be in foreclosure. I know sometimes people want to assume if they have a lower interest rate, and they may think, oh, if I take over the loan, I mean, you can. All you have to do is call the mortgage company, supply your personal information, social security number, your income information, all that to them. They'll verify you just like they did that buyer, to see if you can actually take over. It's a simple process, just contacting the bank, and they have to get authorization from the current person who holds the mortgage to make sure that that person is really transferring it over. You can do that just like if someone wants to get added onto title, do a quick claim deed. You just have to contact a title company, and you can do it that way. Someone said, is there a limit on how many homes you can purchase? Is there a limit on how many homes you can purchase? Here's the thing. The way that mortgage companies do it nowadays, because in the past, what happened was, if you bought a home and you want to buy another home, they did not count the first home against you. So you could bought 3 homes. It didn't matter. But the reason why they stopped that is because too many people were allowing their first and second homes to go into foreclosure. And I even met some people, when all that was happening, and I was like, what you gonna do with your first home? And they were like, oh, I'm gonna let it go into foreclosure. I got the home of my dreams. And I'm like, you gonna let it go into foreclosure? Why not just sell it? I ain't got time for that. They're not gonna give me what it's worth. So because all the people were thinking like that person was, now you have to qualify for the number of homes. That's why if you qualify for your first home, let's say you qualify for 500,000, and then you try to get a second home, they always ask you what you're doing with your first one, because they know one of the two is going to be an investment. So they want to know if you're either selling it or if you're leasing it out. Okay. If you say you're going to keep it and lease it out, they're going to need to see a copy of the current lease in order to approve you for the second home. But here's the thing: you are approved for 500,000 for the first home. The second home, 9 times out of 10, you're getting approved for less. You're getting approved for less, unless you get a co-signer to go on with you with that second or third home. There is not a limit to how many homes you can purchase, as long as you can afford it. Now, the question is going to come up is, can you get a home if they qualify you for 185,000, like someone that I know just got recently approved for, and they can't even buy anything pretty much that they want, because 185,000 isn't much, but they also had 2 other homes. So the number of homes you get, your approval amount tends to go down unless you get co-signers on there. So let me see if I have any other questions before I go on to the next topic of the day. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. I'm sorry. That's a delayed reaction. Okay. All right. That was it for that. So I'll be back to talk about the government shutdown, y'all. Be right back. All right, y'all. I want to talk briefly about the government shutdown. That's looming. Today is September the 29th, 2023. You all know that the government could possibly shut down tomorrow on September the 30th. And it's going to affect a lot of people. And the government shutdown has, it seemed like I don't know, it seemed like every year we're dealing with this for real. I don't know if it's every year, every other year, but we're dealing with the government shutdown. Um, I just want to share my thoughts and my opinion on it. First of all, I want to pray for everyone that's working for the government. I pray that they don't shut down, so that that payments don't stop, because the bills don't stop. and the bill collectors don't seem to be understanding when things happen. Just like when COVID came, people were still want you to pay, even though the world wasn't moving and people weren't going outside, but they want you to still pay. So I sympathize and empathize for, the workers. Second of all, I just wanted to say the government doesn't care anything about the American people, y'all, and that's my opinion. They just only care when it pertains to you voting them in. Most of them are going to continue to get money. Most of them who making these decisions that's affecting other people's lives, they don't care because their family is going to be okay. Their family is all right. So they don't care what happens to you because they're good. They're so nonchalant about things, and they so, it's like to me, it seemed like high school when I look at them sometimes, because it's about I want my way, like spoiled, entitled brats, and I'm not going to move. I'm just going to be stubborn because I want what I want, regardless of who it affects and how it affects them. And I just say that, y'all, that when it pertains to things in this world, no one is going to look after you like you. Sometimes your own family doesn't care about you. They only care about what you can do for them. I'm talking about immediate family and distance family. They only care about what you can do for them. You have to understand that, people, just like the government, don't care. So you have to care more. You have to put yourself in a position to win. You have to put yourself in a position to, look out for you when no one else is looking out for you. Because if the government shuts down, and let's say hypothetically, I think the longest one was 35 days. Let's say they shut down for 3 months. That's going to be very, traumatic for a lot of people. But the government doesn't care, y'all. They don't care. They only care when they want people's votes. So I'm saying this to you all, that please start to think about your future and putting things in place to set you up down the line. So if this was to happen again, because when the world shut down in 2020, when the government shut down, a lot of times, many people, we rely on them, we rely on all types of services, but they don't care, y'all. So when it pertains to this shutdown, like I said, it's just a reflection of what goes on in people's family, but they just put it on a bigger stage. It's going to affect the whole country one way or another. I pray that they resolve the issue by tomorrow, before tomorrow. They may do it at the last hour, but if they don't, because most people who work for the government, they are going to get retro pay. So they are going to get paid. It's just a delay pay. I hope it ain't too long, but please start looking out for you doing other things in the future. And please make better decisions when it pertains to voting for these people in the office, because they don't care because their family is good. They don't care if your family eat because their family gonna eat. They don't care if you can't pay your bills because they're gonna still be able to pay their bills, or write their bills off with government funding and stuff, because y'all know all the crooked stuff that they do in the government. So the only thing I gotta say is please look out for you and yours, and work on looking out for you and yours if you have not already looked out for you and yours. So I just want to say the government shutdown is looming. um, you know, I pray that it doesn't go that way, but the way things looking, we don't know, because it's just a lot. It's crazy, y'all. I just wanted to share that. So I'm coming back with a recap, 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 recap. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, here's the recap. The importance of a contingency. Please keep in mind that having a contingency in your contract is vital to your contract. It can make or break your contract. It is very, very important. It is terms that agreed upon between the seller and the buyer, but it's really to protect the buyer. Always have a contingency in your contract. Do not waive your contingencies ever, ever. What's meant for you is meant for you. Remember that. And then also, I thank you for the Q&As. And then also, when it pertains to this government shutdown, y'all, let's just pray that this shutdown does not happen. Let's just pray that, they get it all together and they stop acting like, fighting siblings, or fighting spouses, and that they can work it out themselves. I want to thank you all for joining me. I saw about the technical difficulties last week. And please follow me on all my social media platforms, which should be listed below. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, and Pinterest, and all of them. Please follow me on all of them to help me get my numbers up. And I appreciate it. And I thank you always. And I see you each and every Friday at 12 p.m. And thank you for joining me for Real Estate, Real Life, Real Talk, and Real Live with your host, Damon the Agent.